This is the only advice you need with business success speaker, Matt Hyams.
This week, we're talking about how to avoid getting shot if you're the CEO of a company. We're going to talk about doppelgängers, wearing bulletproof face masks, getting a gun basket, and psychiatric surveys.
All right, let's do this.
If you haven't heard, United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was shot and killed yesterday in New York City. It was a targeted attack. No one knows what happened. And we're talking about it today because this is something that all CEOs have to worry about: getting shot and killed by someone who doesn't like you. When you're a CEO, you're going to have a lot of haters. It just goes with the territory. People don't like successful people, particularly when they're white men. So we're going to talk today about how to avoid getting shot and killed as a CEO and a leader, and some steps you can take and put into place to avoid getting shot. And take it from me, I should know. Now, the first thing is to have a metal detector at your business. If you don't have this already, I don't know what you're doing. Make sure anyone who comes into the building does not get through with a gun. Even if it's a conceal and carry state that allows you to carry guns, you can't be able to come into the building with a gun. That's number one. Employees with guns is a really easy way to get shot as a CEO. You know, you end up telling someone, hey, we're not going to go with your idea. And then they go, okay, well, you're dead. Bang, bang, game over. And then I wouldn't be surprised if they convince people to go ahead with their idea after they've shot you, because you're not around, you're dead, and they tell people that your dying wish was to go with that idea, and your dying words were, do the idea. I know a few CEOs whose lives ended that way, and the employee who shot them ran with their idea after there was no leadership opposition. Now, the upside of those stories was the employee was right. They were good ideas, and they ended up becoming the new CEO. But they were all unfortunately shot themselves down the line a few years later. But the idea was still a good one, and they proved their point. Now, when it comes to having guns in the office, you could also be in a meeting and you say, okay, I want to hear from everyone, and everyone raises their hand, and the hand that they're raising, they all have loaded Glocks in them. And then you got to be like, can you use your other hand? And that was something that happened to me earlier in my leadership career. In an earlier business I had, everyone was allowed to bring their guns. And when I'd say, hey, raise your hand if you have an idea, everyone would raise their hand and everyone would have a gun in their hand. And then I'd be like, can you use your other hand? So we established the other hand policy, which is what we called it. We called it Project the Other Hand. And then everyone knew you can't raise your hand with your gun hand. You got to raise it with your non-gun hand. One of the reasons we also did this, not only was it intimidating the meetings, but a lot of these Glocks, they didn't have safeties on them. So before we established the Project Use Your Other Hand, they'd raise their gun hand and the gun would go off and they'd shoot through the ceiling and it would go right into whoever was sitting up there in the office above us. And I didn't own that floor above us. That was a different office. It was a dental office. So, you know, sometimes someone would be getting a cavity filled or their teeth cleaned or whatever, and they'd get shot in the ass or worse. And we killed a few dental patients that way. Not me, but some of my employees did. It was terrible. These dental patients, you know, they thought they were going in for a routine cleaning. They tell their spouse, hey, I'll be back in a bit, just going to get to the dentist, just going to the dentist to get a routine teeth cleaning. And then they'd get shot and killed. And the dental office would tell us, you have to call this family and tell them what happened. And at first, you know, we'd complain like little kids, like, why do we have to do it? Come on. But we'd eventually relent and we'd say, hi, I'm calling from the dental office. We're not actually the dental office ourselves. We work on the floor underneath and we accidentally killed your family member. They'd always, of course, be surprised and want to know what happened. You know, they'd say like, I thought they were going for a teeth cleaning. You know, their spouses would tell us and we'd say, he was, or they were. And they were getting their teeth cleaned. And the good news is their teeth look great. And they don't have any cavities or any teeth issues at all. So that's the upside. No further cavities. Nothing else has to be done. And they've got a clean bill of health as far as the teeth are concerned. They do not have a clean bill of health, though, when it comes to being alive. They were shot underneath through the ceiling and through the dental seat they were sitting on. And we're very sorry about that. And we had insurance, so we'd pay it out. And those employees would go to jail, and we never saw them again. And that was a tough break. I lost some of my best employees that way. Some of those people did really great work. So make sure people can't bring in their guns, and God forbid you can't install a metal detector or you do let everyone bring in their guns. I highly recommend implementing Project Use Your Other Hand when raising your hand. Or just have everyone put their guns in a basket. Get a gun basket at the Container Store and have everyone put their guns in the basket before they enter the meeting or the conference room or whatever. Because it's also very intimidating for meetings with a new client or a prospective client where everyone has their guns on the table. Not everyone has this policy where you can bring guns into the office. So a new client might be like, why are there guns in the room? And then you have to say, well, we allow it, but we do have Project Raise Your Other Hand. But that's not a great look. Okay, so that's the first thing. Moving on, I also recommend, and this is something I did when I had a few assassination attempts on my own life, because I was the target of many murder attempts after some initiatives that I implemented that didn't go quite as planned. Now, if you listen to the previous podcast episodes, you'll know that I implemented Bring Your Dying Parent to Work. And we had a hospice center on site and a cremation plant. And this was so you could say goodbye to your dying parent and still keep productivity up. So you could have lunch, say goodbye to your parent, get a tuna fish sandwich, and you could go back to work. And it was great, and it was working for a while. But where things went awry was that some employees felt that our hospice center had put their parent down too soon, that maybe they started filling them with morphine before it was needed. And it's true, we did have a few lazy hospice employees in that hospice center. It's not good to have lazy employees in a hospice center, I found out after the fact. There were times when these employees, they wanted to go home early, or they just kind of maybe sped along the morphine process to kill off a few people so they could get home for dinner or go on a vacation. Maybe if some patients required some extra attention and they weren't going to die that day and there wasn't anybody to take the employee's shift, they may have just slipped some extra morphine and killed them off a little too early. Prematurely was the word that the lawyers used. And those children of those parents were upset. So they thought that I was responsible since I had implemented the hospice center at the office in the first place and hired these bad apples. I mean, these people were going the way of the afterlife anyway. And that's what I told their children. I said, look, did they go a little bit early? Maybe. Were they going to go? Yeah. If it wasn't Friday, it was going to be Sunday. So what do you want from me? Now, it turns out that saying, what do you want from me, is not a great response to someone who's just lost their parent. And that's something that I learned. And I took that with me because I have a growth mindset and I always see my mistakes as development opportunities. So that's just another sidebar tip. Not a great thing to say. You should just say compassionate things like, I'm so sorry, and I'll look into why your parent was pushed to die earlier than they should have and what happened with that employee. And we ended up removing that hospice center anyway because of the attempts on my life. Now, if an employee in the hospice center pushes your parent to death a little too soon, that's one thing. But come after me and try to kill me, well then obviously this hospice center is not working and it's got to go. So we changed that. And luckily for me, they did not get me, the people who tried to kill me. They missed because I just happened to just walk naturally in a serpentine fashion. That's just the way that I walk. I don't walk straight. So people had a hard time getting me who were trying to shoot me. I'd go right and then I'd go left and the bullets would just zoom by me. And for a week, there was 1 week I remember where I was getting shot at constantly and constantly dodging bullets. And they were zooming by. And my serpentine walking style, thank God, saved my life. I would just be walking and boom, zoom, bullet, bullet. So that's another side tip, by the way. Just walk in a serpentine fashion always. Just walk curved. Even if you're annoying people on the sidewalk with you, you got to say, I'm trying to save my life. And better to walk on sidewalks where there aren't a lot of people because they can get shot too. Now, third tip, I also recommend getting a doppelganger to walk out before you and let them get shot. And some of these new human robots that they're making, you can get one of those too. I haven't done that, but I hear they're very lifelike and you can dress them up as you and you can have them be the ones who get shot. You can also say, if you have a loyal assistant, be like, look, I need you to go out there first and look like me. And if they're not loyal and they're not willing to do that, well, then this isn't really a dedicated employee. You could be like, look, you're not going to get shot if you just walk serpentine, okay? And if you do get shot, I'll take the blame. Because it's important to take accountability as a leader. When you've made a mistake, you've got to take accountability. A lot of people think that if you're a leader, you should never apologize. It's not true. You should always be able to say, that was wrong of me. That was a mistake of mine. I should not have had my assistant go out looking like me when I knew people were trying to kill me. But I do recommend getting a doppelganger. Have that doppelganger person enter and leave places before you. I actually went a step further because I was so concerned for my life that I had my doppelganger come to live with me. Now, that was a tricky time because my doppelganger got so close to my family because he ended up having sex with my wife and becoming a father figure to my children. The doppelganger was actually home more often than I was, and he started hanging out with my friends. My wife would call me at the office and say, hey, we're having dinner with the Andersons this weekend. And I'd be like, well, I've got a company retreat this weekend in the woods, which I never did. I would stay at a hotel and drink in the lobby and just watch people because that relaxed me more than my family did. But the solution was to take the doppelganger in my place. But what happened consequently is that after enough dinner parties happened with the doppelganger in my place, and we started going on family vacations. She took the doppelganger to my family vacations with my extended family, and they all got to know the doppelganger, and they started to love him more than me. I had to sort of enter into a mutual polyamorous thing where I wasn't having sex with my wife, but my doppelganger was. And he became a father to my children, and he started getting all the presents at holiday times that my family would have given me. I'd see the pictures from family vacations and events that it looked like they had some great times and they were making some wonderful memories that didn't involve me. And so, I'm grateful to the doppelganger ultimately because he taught my children how to play tennis, how to swim. If it wasn't for the doppelganger going on vacation, I would have missed some really great moments that I was able to see through pictures and videos. Photographs of my children learning to swim for the first time, and my son hitting his first home run and my daughter learning to drive. And also some photographs and videos I wasn't prepared to see of him and my wife having sex and my wife having an orgasm for the first time, which frankly was new to me. I had never seen that happen to a woman before. I had actually thought it was a myth created by left-wing feminists. Turns out it's real. It's a real thing. So that was an eye-opener as well. So that's just a little tip. Those are some of the cautionary tales of having a doppelganger. But, you got to weigh what's important to you. If at the top of your list is living, then you can't go wrong with a doppelganger. I am here, still alive today, and that's because I did get a doppelganger. And I did sort of lose contact with my family. Now that's true. You could say that that's a downside. And I wasn't as close as the doppelganger was, but now that my life is safe again, once it happened and I wasn't in danger anymore, I fired the doppelganger and I reintegrated into my life. And, while no one trusts me anymore and they all feel closer to the doppelganger, who does visit every other week, and they call him Dad and they call me Mr. Hyams, I don't mind because it has a sort of nice, respectful ring to it. And I think that this new dynamic suits me more, frankly, as a CEO, because calling me Mr. Hyams, that also clears up confusion for me because then it just makes everyone in my life an employee to me. And then I don't have to delineate between different kinds of people, employees versus kids and wife, and how I should feel towards them. If I can just be the leader for everyone else and everyone's an employee under me, then that's great. I did used to like to be called Dad, but now it turns out I like to be called Mr. Hyams more by my children and my wife. And I like to have them defer to me just in a purely professional setting. And that's the way that changed for me. But what stayed the same was me being alive. And I would also throw out some surveys in the company to get vibes, to get the company culture vibes, get the tone. What's the collective tone in the company? Is it angry? Do you feel a lot of resentment building? What's going on with the people? Are they happy to work there? Are they not happy? You need to figure out if you have disgruntled employees or if you have happy people. So put this question on the survey. Do you want to shoot your boss? Just plain and simple. Throw it in there, in the middle, somewhere. Sandwich it, You can make it multiple choice, if you don't want to put people on the spot. You can do A, I do want to shoot them. B, I don't want to shoot them. C, sometimes I think about shooting them, but I don't know if I will. D, I never think about shooting them. E, I hadn't thought about shooting them, but now that you mention it, I think it might be a good idea. And then you can enter that into a computer, have AI sort out the stats, and you can get your percentage of how likely it is that you're going to be shot. And then you can do psychiatric evaluations on everybody in the company that scores high on this psychiatric evaluation to see who your likely shooters are. And I would start giving those people antipsychotic drugs, whether they want to or not. If they want to keep their job, you take the lithium, you take the Valium, take whatever you can give them, and then work on that, because that's another way to root out potential would-be shooters. Because, some people just snap. You've seen those shows, Snap, 48 Hours, Dateline, Chopped. That might be a cooking show. These are people who've never killed anyone before. And all of a sudden, They do. So you don't want to be the first victim of one of those people. And it never hurts to wear a bulletproof vest all the time, or even a bulletproof full bodysuit, not just the vest. Wear bulletproof leg pants and bulletproof shoes. And then I personally also wear a bulletproof face mask. And sometimes I don't take it off in the office. Like there was a period when I was getting shot all the time, if we were doing performance reviews that day, I'd leave the bulletproof face mask on. And yes, it was a sort of a frightening mask. It sort of looked like a hockey mask or like a half face where I'd show my eyes, but my face and mouth and nose would be covered like a Hannibal Lecter mask, but bulletproof. And sometimes it would be full face coverage, like a hockey mask, like Jason from Friday the 13th or Mike Myers from Halloween. You know, one of those horror movie masks where it just covers your whole face. And this was disconcerting for people. But the mask would be bulletproof. It was for me so that I wouldn't get shot or killed. And so I'd say to someone in their performance review with the bulletproof mask on, you're doing great, your work is good, you're good at anticipating problems, and everyone says they like you. But the employee wouldn't feel good about the performance review because of the mask that I was wearing. Also, because of the voice decoder I put on my voice. That didn't help matters either. I had one of those voice masker devices where it would make my voice a few registers lower. So it'd be like, you're doing great work. Everybody likes you. Like they do in those shows when they don't want to be identified. And I did that just to, let's have fun with this. I'm wearing the mask. I might as well be masking my voice anyway. Let's just make me a whole character that's a little uncomfortable. I'm wearing the mask. Let's just go all the way and change my voice too. And I also did this because I had been told by neuroscientists and psychologists that studied me once that my normal voice doesn't convey any natural emotion. Scientists looked at my brain and said that it doesn't light up in the same way as people who experience empathy. So I find that if I'm telling negative feedback or positive feedback, my voice doesn't change and I don't show any emotion because I ultimately don't care. It's really just about me and the money. So I did the voice changing thing just so they couldn't tell what kind of emotion or lack thereof that I was having. And it was just a way for me to hide my voice. And then they would just be able to hear the words that I was using at face value. And then they could decide how they felt about them. Now, they may have felt better if I hadn't been wearing the mask, but, shoot me in the face once, shame on you. Shoot me in the face twice, and why are you still working here is my question. But thank God for the mask. So those are a few tips just to get you started. I can't promise you that you're not going to have someone who's going to want to shoot you. That's just par for the course. That's the entrepreneurial life that you signed up for. I mean, this is why we're go-getters, and people resent that. They don't like people who do things for themselves and create companies. That's just something that exists as a side effect of a capitalistic society. So I hope this helps. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week or thereabouts. Take care.